long do you think we'll be here? I'm not talking to you.
You know what? We are so screwed.
Thought you weren't talking to me.
I am Joe Deckelmeyer with Screen Rant. I am with director Josh Cooley for Transformers 1. I am so excited for this movie. We're starting at the origins.
The origin.
Right at the origins, we got a great voice cast, incredible cast. First question I have for you, though, is that this is the ultimate toy box for a filmmaker, I can assume. What was it like stepping into the Transformers franchise?
Oh, wow. The franchise is enormous.
Sure.
I mean, there's been so many movies, video games, comics, everything. We're starting so much earlier than what's been really shown before. So, working on this film, I got to work closely with Hasbro. They shared with me all their information, which was a ton. And it was great to dive into that and just see what we can play with. Because there's so many different continuities to Transformers, so many different versions that we can grab what we needed to tell the story.
Awesome. Now, looking back at all the other versions of the franchise, what was the biggest lesson and cardinal rule that you kept to take on for its core in this film?
For the core, it was all about Optimus and Megatron. What we know, they're going to become enemies. This film, we're seeing them as brothers, basically. Sure. And so, for me, every single decision was about that relationship.
You know, speaking of Megatron, I feel like this is the most vulnerable we're going to see the character, and at least the most vulnerable we've seen the character on screen yet. Can you talk about how you wanted to foreshadow his eventual role in the franchise and bringing empathy to that character?
Yeah, one of the goals from the very beginning was I wanted the audience, people who have no idea what Transformers. Let's pretend there's somebody who doesn't know what Transformers is, that they can go into this movie completely fresh and not even know he's going to be the villain. I thought that would be really cool to just see this relationship and to kind of fall in love with it. And then to see there's something that happens where all of a sudden they have two different worldviews on how to solve this problem, and you understand it. So it's not just the bad guy being bad. It's like, well, I kind of get what he's talking about, which makes it real, makes it feel believable. And so that was, that really, I was like, I want that challenge. And I talked to Brian Tyree Henry, who plays D-16 about that, and he loved that and really got into it. I mean, all the performances are just unreal.
Yes, you have such a wonderful cast. Now, with Bumblebee, audiences are used to him almost communicating through music. Mm-hmm. What was it like finding that voice? And did Keegan Michael Key, did you give him the ability to improv that at all? And how was that finding that voice?
Well, yeah, so a lot of, Bumblebee speaks to the radio. He's almost like a silent character, which is really appealing. Knowing that we were going to be starting so much earlier, let's do the opposite. Sure. Let's give him a voice that doesn't stop. And which I knew would be a lot of fun. I just finished working with Keegan on another project, so I immediately had him in my head. And before I even kind of said yes to this project, I was almost like, hey, would you want to do Bumblebee character? And he was like, oh yeah, no, totally, let's do it. And so from day one, that was always the thing. You can't stop him from improvising, and you don't want to. By the way, he can say anything and make it funny. So I love working with him. He's just so much fun.
Now, we spent a lot of time on Cybertron in this film, and I feel like we haven't seen Cybertron in quite a while. Can you talk about exploring Cybertron in Transformers 1?
Well, in Transformers 1, the war hasn't happened yet. The planet's not dying yet. There's no reason to leave. So what's the opposite of that? What did things look like when it was great?
Right.
And the more I thought about it, they are fighting for their planet. That's what this is all about. So I wanted Cybertron to feel really appealing, and so that the audience goes, oh yeah, no, you wouldn't want to leave that. It's kind of awesome. So knowing that it was, all made of metal, and that it transforms itself, from the day one, I was like, well, what does that even look like? Sure. So that got me really excited to do this.
Now, this is such a unique take on these characters because it's such an early part of from the characters that we know. What surprised you the most about the development of these characters as you were working on the film? And what was your biggest takeaway seeing their kind of arc to where we know they become?
That was, I'll be even more specific. I think talking about Optimus Prime, Peter Cullen is my Optimus Prime. That's what I grew up with. That's what everybody knows. He created that character. That voice is so personal to him. So that was from day one. I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? We are doing early enough where he's Orion Pax, known as a different, has a different name. It's a different character that he will eventually become Optimus. And so with that in mind, talking with Chris, and Chris's voice is so deep and powerful. Just when he's asking you, like, hey, can you pass me that? You're like, oh my gosh. But it's so, he has that quality of an Optimus. So we talked about how can we get there?
Right.
And so we had him be a little bit more, I don't want, young isn't the word, but it's like more, he's just not as wise yet.
A little more carefree.
Carefree, a little more immature, which is fun. Like, you love to see that. And that really helps with seeing Orion Pax and D-16 as friends, because they're kind of like immature college buddies in a way. And that's just fun to watch. And so Chris really got into that, really dug it, and understood it from the very beginning, and really helped develop it in a major way.
Now, we've only seen Optimus really as a leader, and it's kind of interesting that we're going to see him so early on, because it's fascinating to see an Optimus that would be young and carefree and full of, is easy. He can make mistakes. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about how Chris kind of found that voice? Is that something that he kind of knew what he wanted to do when he was playing the role? Like, did he come in with an idea of what he wanted to play?
We explored it. It was kind of in the script, but every single line, he's an amazing improviser. So every single line had the spirit of it, and he would just take it up to the next level. And he's so charming, and he brought a lot of that. That is just naturally him, and he brought a lot of that into the character.
Now, I love that this is really a Transformers for all ages. And if you, like you said, if you don't know anything about Transformers, you can jump right in here and watch this. But for those longtime fans that love the Generation 1 and all the other iterations of Transformers, what do you think they're going to be surprised by with this take? And talk about some of the maybe Easter eggs that are sprinkled throughout the film, if there are any.
Every scene has something in it. My crew at ILM and at Paramount, they are all fans. We're all massive fans. We all grew up with it. We all, every like you said, every generation, every version. So there is an Easter egg probably from every single version of it. And it's everywhere. There's stuff I'm like, wait a second, what's that character doing? And with the animator's like, oh, I thought I'd throw them in there. I was like, great, let's do it. So there's a lot of love that went into the making of this film.
Now, after exploring these characters in Transformers 1, did you kind of fall in love with any one character where you'd like to see them spin off into their solo adventure?
A solo adventure? Wow, I hadn't thought about that.
I feel like you've thought about this a little bit.
Solo adventure?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I really loved was working with Scarlett Johansson for Alita 1. We talked early on about not just making this a character that's just off to the side and kind of chiming in every once in a while, but like actually making her really important to the development of Orion Pax. And because, in certain continuities, they're together as a couple. Sure. And everything. So that was something that was really important, and we talked about and worked on just making her that a part of the growth of Orion.
Now, certain people may have an idea of what Cybertron is based on other iterations of Transformers they're familiar with. Talk to me about your Cybertron that we find in this film. Now, we know that the war hasn't happened yet, but what can we kind of expect from this early Cybertron?
Well, it's a little more wild. There's, one of the things that we talked about with my art team, with production designer Jason Shire, who's incredible, was the design of this place. I didn't want it to just be a gray marble in the sky with gray characters in front of it, which would be hard to see. So, like, how can we make this beautiful? So we looked at a lot of natural metals that exist on our planet, and when you have the light hits things correctly, like, it's stunning. And so we used a lot of our own nature as a reference for that. And I wanted the audience to fall in love with this planet, because, like I said, it is what's at stake at the end of the day, and something we've never seen before on screen.
I can't wait, because I hope Cybertron almost feels like its own character itself.
It is. Like, that's exactly how I thought about it. Like,
really?
I want this to have its own character. Like, you could basically, what I go with is, would I want to stand there if it was a theme park?
Right.
And the answer is yes, absolutely.
Oh, you got me more excited than I possibly could be already for the film. Well, Josh, thank you so much for stopping by. Enjoy Comic-Con 2024. We're back, baby. And Transformers 1's right around the corner. Here we go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Wheels! I need wheels!